Hello, everyone. I'm Engagement Editor John A. Torres, and welcome to our coverage of the 2022 elections. We are proud to present these forums in partnership with the League of Women Voters of the Space Coast. Our goal? Simple: to inform you, the public, before you cast your vote at the August 23rd primary. Now, we have a lot to cover, so without further ado, I'd like to introduce the two candidates for School Board District 5, incumbent Katye Campbell and challenger Kim Hough. Welcome, ladies. You'll each have 1 minute for your answers. And if you bring up your opponent, there'll be some time allotted for rebuttal, which we've gone over off screen. So we're going to each of you will now have 1 minute to make opening remarks, say about your background, qualifications, and why you want to serve on the school board. We'll start with Katye, and then we will simply alternate questions. So go ahead, Katye.
Awesome. Thanks for having us at this forum today. My name is Katye Campbell, and I've been serving on the school board for the last 4 years. I'm a former teacher. I taught for 7 years in all different kinds of schools, Title I schools. They were middle schools. I also have 3 children. 2 are BPS students, and 1 is a recent BPS grad. I'm also a former employee. Over the few years before my school board victory, I was subbing in our schools, getting a taste for what our schools were like and getting to know them even better. I really feel this as a calling for me. I want to represent our community, which I've gotten to know over the last 15 years of service, both in the schools and in ministry and church life. And I want to continue that leadership, bringing the connections between our community and our schools to our community.
Bernie, great. And now Kim?
Hi, I'm Kim Hough, and I'm running for the Brevard Public School District in District 5. I am a mom of 2 children in our public schools and an advocate for their education. I've had the privilege of to be a regular volunteer in their classrooms and serve on 2 PTO boards. When the COVID-19 pandemic presented new challenges in our schools, I joined together with several other parents and formed Families for Safe Schools, which is a nonprofit organization committed to supporting public education and protecting student safety. I'm not just running for my kids, but for 70,000 unique and diverse students. Brevard Public Schools is responsible to educate. As a member of the board, voters can count on me to vote for policies that will protect the well-being and educational interests of all students. Our students, teachers, and parents deserve a school system that supports their shared needs and interests.
Great. Thank you, ladies. And now we will stay with you, Kim, for this first one as we're going to alternate. And we're going to jump right into the fire here, okay? So the schools today and these school board meetings across the country seem to be on the front line of our culture wars. How would you, as a school board member, navigate that?
So I do believe that our original policy that guided the speaker portion for the public was a good policy. I believe in the First Amendment rights for people to petition their government. I also understand that the school board had a lot of challenges in order to keep order in that room. I have also been present in those school board meetings when those things were occurring, and I believe that Ms. Belford has done a relatively good job trying to keep things on track, keep those speakers moving, keeping things appropriate. There are children in the room at times and children listening at home, and so it's really important that we keep those discussions okay for them to hear.
Great. Okay, Katye?
Well, when you talk about culture wars, there's all different kinds of things that have entered our boardroom over the last several years. And I think for me, the most important thing to do in those situations is to get the correct information out there, because a lot of times those things are fueled by misinformation. Someone reads a news story of something that happens in a state, several states over, and assumes that it's happening here in BPS. or maybe there was a misunderstanding or a communication. I like to be that conduit of good communication. When people email me, I try to get them connected with a person who can get them the right answers. As far as in the school board meetings, Kim mentioned our original public comment policy. It actually, before we made the changes last fall, our original public comment policy did not allow for people to come and speak on things that weren't related to the agenda. The board had just always done it. So when we created that new policy, which put the non-agenda speakers at the end, and then recently I brought to the board, hey, can we increase that time back up to 3 minutes? That was to ensure that people who are speaking off agenda would have that opportunity and get it in writing, get it in print in our policy. And that was one of the reasons why we did it.
Great. And I want to say that you guys are doing great on time. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. All right. So we're going to stick with Katye for now on this question. As an incumbent school board candidate, what would you say to voters about why that experience matters? And for Kim, the question will be, as a newcomer, what would your appeal be to voters? So you can start off, Katye.
Well, 4 years on the school board has given me really a lot of in-depth knowledge about education finance in the state of Florida, the state of our schools. It's really helped me build relationships, not only in the community, as I mentioned before, but also in our schools. I get to know through school visits our principals, our teachers, our students, different parent organizations and community support organizations like the Children's Hunger Project, or different people who come along and support us. And that experience, those relationships really help give me the big picture for when we make decisions. I was a challenger, so I don't think incumbency is everything there is, because I beat an incumbent and I brought a different fresh perspective, and I recognize the importance of that as well. But definitely the last 4 years have given me significant time to demonstrate how I communicate and how I work well with others.
Okay, Kim?
So I have asked myself this question too. This is a great question for me because I have totally different skills. I have a master's degree in architecture, so that required me to do a lot of work in several different fields, and it's really got to focus on problem solving and budgeting, and so things that are relatable to schools, but in a very different way. I also, through forming Families for Safe Schools, have had a very intense learning of all things that are related to our district, how the district works, how the school board works, and how those things all interact with our schools. I've also been in schools for 6 years, with the exception of 2020, working with our teachers through PTO boards and as a volunteer, and just a general presence in our schools.
Okay, thanks. Who went first last time? I guess that was Katye. So we're going to stay with Kim here. Obviously, there's only two people. John, come on, try to keep up. We're all horrified by what seems to be an annual school shooting. What can you do as a school board member to ensure that our children are safe? And I have to say that I wrote a piece over the weekend asking people to email me what their concerns were, what I should ask you folks, and this was number one. So, school safety.
So, our schools in the years following the Parkland shooting in Florida really did a lot to ensure that they're safe. We have armed resource officers in every school. We have cameras. We have single points of entry. And those things are working well. Where I would say we need additional support would be by implementing social workers and mental health counselors in every school. Currently, we do not have that. These mental health counselors could be a point of intervention for our high-risk children. Also, relationships between teachers and students are so important, because when students feel comfortable and capable to speak to their teachers about things that they're seeing or hearing outside of the classroom that might pose a threat, those are places and points for intervention.
Great. Okay, Katie?
Well, I know that especially after Uvalde, the issue of school security has risen again to the top of everyone's mind. I think the concerns, some of the times the concerns in our area are elevated because security is not one of those things that we can talk very openly about for security reasons. But what I can share is that over the last 4 years, we engaged a third party to do a district-wide security assessment. They looked at every building, every procedure, and then we are implementing, starting with the highest priority and all the way down to us, we are implementing those things one at a time. We've already gotten a lot of that done. I can tell you that includes cameras. I can tell you that includes fixing our entryways so they can be more secure access as people come into the buildings, and we can close them down quickly if necessary. I can tell you that it involved changing our procedures as moving around. And so some of those things, along with great partnerships with our law enforcement agencies, really can give our people in Brevard confidence that we are doing well with security.
Great. And we're going to stay with you, Katie, for this next one. This is an issue that seems to come up every cycle or every year or so. There's been a lot of talk in recent years about the teacher salaries and how we lag behind as a state and also as a county. So in order to retain and attract talented educators, what can be done to try to raise teacher pay and retain them?
Right. So we have worked over the last, since I've been on the board, with the additional funding that we have gotten from the state, along with budget cuts of more than $29 million from the budget just since I've been on the board, to do things like, in the first year we gave most of our teachers who are highly effective, most of them $1,100 raise per year. This following year, a $2,000 raise per year, along with $1,200 for our 12 plus year employees. Last year we raised the minimum pay using the teacher salary allocation from the state. Over $7,000 from a low of $39,000, and then this year we raised it again, and giving our teachers, our veteran teachers, about $1,000 split between the last 2 years. But I will tell you, we still have vacancies, which, when our teachers can go other places, including other counties, and make additional money, even with all those raises we've given over the last 4 years, it makes it really challenging. And so we are going to have to take a look as a community at what we can do, because we've cut a lot from the budget to try to get that done. There's not a lot more to cut.
Okay, Kim?
Okay. So our teachers and staff deserve better pay. And I believe our district has done some things, and unfortunately, the bonuses have not affected pay over, it's not sustainable year to year. I will go to Tallahassee and lobby and advocate with other school board members to get more funds from our state. Our state is underfunding our schools. It is why our teachers are not paid adequately or anywhere near what the national average is. We are 47th in some polls, but we are very near the bottom in pay for teachers. And in Brevard County, we're one of the lower counties. The surrounding counties pay more than we do. So we must find a way. And so I'm committed to going and talking to legislators and making sure that we are funded properly and we are paying our teachers as the professionals that they are and deserve.
Hey, John, if I could just have that bit of that 30-second rebuttal time, I just wanted to clarify something.
Sure, go ahead.
I want to clarify that the amounts that I shared with you earlier are not bonuses. Those are recurring raises. In addition to that, we have also given thousands of dollars in bonuses over the last few years. But, as Kim might have been thinking, those bonuses aren't retirement eligible. Once they're gone, and they're highly taxed. So it is a challenge, but we have given recurring raises every year. Gotcha.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. We're going to go back to Kim again. This is a real hot button issue. We're talking about an increasing interest in removing some books from our school libraries, and the list seems to be growing. How would you handle the increase in requests for book bans, if you will?
Okay, so the school district has a policy. They had a policy on how to handle book challenges. they needed to create a new policy because the books that were being challenged at a district level to be taken out of every school rather than each school that they existed in, so that our staff didn't have to keep doing reviews. I think that was a great plan. There are opportunities now for parental involvement at the district level to review these books with our media specialists, who are the experts about literature, and to use the law, to use our policy, and to really review literature not based on 9 pages out of 300 pages, and whether those are age appropriate and need to be taken out of our schools, or whether they are allowed to be in our schools. And the reality,
I'm gonna have to stop you there. I'm sorry. I think that's
okay, sorry.
That's long enough. Sorry. Okay, Katie.
All right. So Florida statute defines specific things that are not allowed to be given to children in schools specifically. And I'd encourage people to look it up because this is often misunderstood. It's Florida Statute 847.012. You can Google it. It's got great information. And the law requires community review, community involvement, in addition to setting the standard for what can and cannot be allowed to be given in schools. The idea of book banning, we all make decisions. We all discriminate in our own way. Even our media specialists, they look at books and they say, is this appropriate? Is this not? I realize that the line is different for people, for different parents, for different families, for different media specialists. So what our policy is the importance of this policy is to have that review by a committee of multiple people, and this is why we formed this policy, so that we can look and say, okay, is this book appropriate for this school, this grade level? And I think we've created a great, robust policy to handle that.
Okay, great. Thank you. We're going to stay with you, Katie. With some new legislation passed recently, how would you advise teachers who find themselves trying to navigate new rules for talking to students? And I'm not talking about lessons, like per se, but what about students who seek out trusted teachers and they want to talk about sensitive topics about race or inequality or gender, sexuality? How would you advise teachers? What should they do?
Well, again, something that I think has been fueled by a lot of misunderstanding of the legislation. Teachers should not be replacing the parents in the relationship, but teachers are important relationships in student lives. They inspire students, they encourage students, they come alongside students, and they spend a lot of time with with students every day. And so those relationships are important. But at the same time, I would say that school is not the place where students should be encouraged to keep secrets from parents. And so the best thing that I've heard on this topic is one of our district level administrators said, what we do with a student is if they say they're not ready to have that conversation with their parents, we say, what can we do to help you get there? Because we want to recognize that really important relationship. And again, it's not the place for schools to have to encourage students to have secrets for their parents. At the same time, it can be a great conversation starter for a teacher to encourage a student, hey, let's connect you with this resource. Let's help you facilitate that conversation with your parents.
Okay, great. Kim?
Okay. This is really an important question because our teachers are afraid. They're afraid to talk about things. They're afraid to have books in their classrooms because of the laws that have been passed. And they have created confusion. I have seen other districts already release guidelines to teachers that tell them they must remove photographs if they have a same-sex partner or marriage from their classrooms, that they are not allowed to talk about that same-sex partner. But we are not asking teachers to remove all pictures of their partners or marriages. We are not asking all teachers to not talk about their life outside of school. The law specifically states that the children may not be instructed in sexual orientation or gender identity. However, there is one group of people who are being asked to give up their freedom And that is where this becomes problematic.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you. Just to piggyback off of that a little bit, and we're going to stay with you, Kim. Are there any topics that should be off limits in school?
That is a hard question to answer. As a parent, I have believed there are topics that are off limits for my kids in school. My kids' teachers have not been the people who have brought up those off limits topics to my children in school. So my concern would be more that my kids feel safe and comfortable to talk to a teacher, to talk to an administrator, to come home and tell me what's happening. So that said, I realize that there are people who have a lot of discomfort over some topics, and I trust our teachers. I have faith. I've seen how they interact with our students. They are amazing at navigating appropriateness. They are experts in the age group they teach. And so I believe that we can't say there's an off-limit topic because it might come up.
Okay, great. And Katie, any topics off limits?
Well, I definitely think there are some topics that need to be guided by parental permission. For example, when we do our sex education at whatever level, elementary, middle, high, there's parent notification that goes out. And so parents can come and we can be transparent and say, this is what we're teaching. And so if you're not comfortable with this, we can find a different location or an alternative assignment for your child. Those conversations belong in the home. I do agree with the legislation that said that conversations about sexual orientation, gender identity belong in the home. And I will just tell you, when our teachers over the last few years have had to be responsible for the 5.5-hour mental health lessons that are required by the state, a lot of them were contacting the board saying, this is not why I went to school. This is not what I'm prepared for. And so when you talk about some of these really controversial topics, that's really putting a lot on our teachers. That really needs to be more of a, hey, you know what? I hear you. That's a great conversation for you to have with your parents.
And we're going to stay with you, Katie. You mentioned a little bit earlier about parental involvement / influence. How do you think the BPS is doing right now in terms of that involvement? And should a line be drawn at some point? And if so, where? That was kind of confusing. I hope you understand what I was getting at. Sorry about that.
I'm going to go where I think you're going. It was really, really hard in the 2020-2021 school year to have our doors closed to parents for so long. I encouraged the superintendent and our district leadership to try to open them as soon as possible. And one of the very first things that we opened up was with our mentor opportunities, because with our students struggling so much with mental health during that time in particular, it was really crucial to get those loving additional adults besides their parents, besides their teachers, especially for the students who don't have that support at home, to have someone who's really looking out for them and challenging them and encouraging them along the way. And so, and then as this year, as we've opened things up to field trips and different events, it's really important to get our parents back in. And so we have made fingerprinting free. We've encouraged everywhere I go, I try to encourage people to get signed up to be a mentor, especially with the mentor opportunities. I would like to see more and more of not just parents, but community members getting involved in our schools with partnerships, with mentorship, with in-class help to our teachers. That is crucial for us to increase that.
Okay, Kim?
Parental involvement in our children's education is essential for their success, and that is proven statistically. I, as an involved parent, as a parent who has been in every classroom my children have been in, as well as just being in school, volunteering in other places, I see how important it is for parent involvement to be part of the education system. And I would say that everyone has that opportunity to do that if they want to. And so it is important. It's important that parents who are able to get in and volunteer, to be involved at home with their kids' educational experience, And I'm as many parents as we can get to be involved, the better.
Okay, great. Why don't we stay on the topic of mental health a little bit here? Um, as we all know, the world knows that our students have been through a hellish 2 years. I mean, we all have, but my daughter just graduated from Melbourne High School, and it was a weird last 2 years of high school. Let's face it, right? So, how important is mental health to the students? You've already kind of hit on that a little bit, but are we doing enough to ensure that our students are healthy mentally?
No, that's the easy answer. We are not doing enough. This is another difficult issue in Brevard Public Schools. Currently, we don't have the personnel, we don't have the funds, and we are not addressing all the mental health issues that we need to address for our kids in general, let alone after a couple of very difficult years for everybody. Our schools need social workers and mental health counselors to support our teachers and staff in relation to discipline or in relation to day-to-day issues that our students are going through. Our students come from a diverse population. Over half of our students are on free and reduced lunch. Our schools are a safe place for them. And we need to have professionals that are there to help them navigate through those things so that they are ready to learn.
Great. Okay, Katie?
I would agree with our need for social workers and school psychologists, school counselors, increasing those numbers. The problem is we have a shortage of those, and there's just a shortage of social workers just in general in the community and really across the nation. And so until we can fill that gap, I believe there's a couple things that we do already and that we can increase that will help us with these challenges. Just for the general mental health for all students, in addition to those who may need special, maybe outsourcing with our contracted services, or that we can help them connect. One of those things is for our secondary schools, we have sources of strength. In all of our secondary schools, it's growing. It's just really connecting our students, helping them realize that all the sources that they have, all the things around them that they can draw on, so that they won't fall prey to that mindset that I'm alone. Another thing is our mentoring program. And I encourage everybody to get out there. BPS just posted on their Facebook page recently, get involved in that mentoring, because we get those sources around our students that will help all of them.
Great. And I should have asked this earlier when we were talking about school violence. I'm sorry for jumping back there again, but are you guys in favor of arming teachers at all? We're going to start with Katie.
So this topic was brought up 4 years ago after the Martyrstone and Douglas shooting. And, there are several things that would have to happen for that with state law and the contract and all that. I'll be honest, when I took a look at this in depth 4 years ago, the only way that I would be in favor of that is, one, if it was absolutely volunteer and they went through the same training as our security specialists that we have now. And then it would have to be something like the Texas Marshall program, in which, not only were the teachers going through all the training, but they kept the weapons in a lockbox. Most of our teachers that I've heard from, they want that responsibility, and very, very few are actually qualified. And so I think what we settled on as a district, previous to right before I was elected, with the security specialists supporting our SROs, I think that was a good solution and has worked really well in our schools.
All righty, Kim, should we be arming teachers?
I think we should let teachers teach, and arming them gives them an added responsibility to have a weapon in a classroom. The logistics of all of that, in addition to the things that they're already dealing with, I think that there would have to be an immense amount of training and protocol, more things to put on our teachers' plates than they already have. We're asking them to do so much, and arming them is really the last thing we should be doing.
Okay, great. Thank you. We have two more questions. The first one is, and this one is going to be for Kim first, I guess, is what is your number one biggest concern about our schools now that you would commit to work on?
So, I will say that as the Vice President of Families for Safe Schools, it's hard to pick one thing that is really the most important, but Safe Schools is part of that name. So I'm going to go with Safe Schools, and that includes, the full gamut of physical safety, mental health safety, the safety of our teachers and staff, the safety of our buildings. So our children need to have these types of environments and feel safe and feel ready to learn every day. And our teachers need that so that they are teaching students that are ready to learn. So my focus is very student-based. And so anything that benefits our children is the most important thing.
Okay, Katie, go ahead.
Over the last couple of years through the pandemic, our students have really suffered with the time away, with all the distractions, with, quarantines from COVID and all of that. We've got a lot of challenges with getting them not just caught up, but pushed ahead when it comes to academics, helping them get helping them to be job ready and successful and to find their place of belonging in our school environment so that they can succeed. In order to do that, we really have got to be just practically fully staffed. We've got to have teachers and bus drivers and cafeteria workers in those critical areas because we can't run our schools without them. And so we've got a lot of work to do. We're already working on that. And if you need a job, we're hiring in all different kinds of areas, from carpenters to teachers to air conditioning people. But we've got to get those roles filled so that our students can be learning and make that progress forward.
Great, thank you. And you two are almost off of the hot seat. One last question, and I apologize in advance for this one because it's going to make you think a little bit. I think we all want our leaders to be somewhat flexible and to really listen. So can you each, and we're going to start with Katie, I guess, here, can you each provide me with an example of when you changed your mind recently about something after learning more or after hearing an opposing viewpoint and it impacted how you thought about it?
Right. You talked about earlier our public comment policy, and as we were working through as a board trying to be collaborative, one of the things that we did last fall was we said, what, in order to keep the people who are trying to just come for attention getting, we're going to turn the cameras off at the end of the meeting when we do the non-agenda speakers. And you know what? We had people come out of the woodwork and say, that's a horrible idea. We want to see all of it. They were coming from the right, from the left, from parents, teachers, community. And so we went immediately and came back at the next board meeting. And I said, you know what? We're hearing from all these people. Let's change that. And we immediately voted that we never actually turned the cameras off, because that night that we approved the policy, we voted as a board to go ahead and leave the cameras on. And so, I think I've demonstrated that I have the ability to listen to all sides, to answer as many emails as I can, to take all that input in, because it's really essential to listen to all the sides, to value all and respect and be kind to everyone so that you can formulate the best decision.
Great. Okay, Kim?
So I really have learned through hearing people's stories just about their experiences and how everyone really has a different experience, even the people who look like you, who you think are just very much like you. Everyone comes from a totally different place. And so we don't have a one-size-fits-all solution ever to anything, because everyone has a very different experience. And so I am growing and learning every day still at almost 50 years old. I have changed much of what I thought and that I was brought up to kind of conform to, because I just hear people's stories, and it has changed my heart. It has changed how I interact with people, and it's helped me see that we should embrace our diversity and embrace that we all have a lot of different ideas.
Okay, great. Thank you. Well, you guys are off the hot seat almost.
Oh,
You're going to each get 1 minute now just to tell voters why we should vote for you. So because the opening statement we started with Katie, we're going to give the first closing statement to Kim. So why should you get our vote?
okay. This is about your child. As the Vice President of Families for Safe Schools, I have worked tirelessly to advocate for the physical and mental health safety of our students and teachers. The issues discussed today are difficult, and there are many more. I have been involved in finding solutions for, and as a school board member, I will continue to advocate for the safety and education in Brevard Public Schools. I hope during today's debate you have recognized my passion and sense of urgency about the challenges facing our schools. If I have earned your vote, please vote by mail starting July 21st, early August 13th through 20th, or on Election Day on August 23rd.
Great. Okay, Katie, your closing statement.
All right. I do believe that I am the best prepared candidate, not just the last 4 years serving on the board and my experience gained there, but my experience as a parent of 3 students in 4 different schools in District 5, my experience as a teacher in the classroom, my experience in the community, getting to know our community's needs over the last 15 years. But I do realize there's a lot of issues that we might be of concern to people that we didn't talk about today. So I want to encourage people to check out my website, www.katyecampbell.com. You can find a lot more information about my views and experience there. But ultimately, I think that a school board member needs to be someone who can do all that research, do the homework, take an input, listen to all sides, and then make the best decision. And that's what we're elected to do. And I think I've tried to do that faithfully over the last 4 years. And my commitment is to continue to do that for the next 4.
Great. Well, listen, on behalf of Florida Today and the League of Women Voters of the Space Coast, I want to thank you both for taking the time to be with me here today and to answer these questions, educate our voters, and good luck to you both. And we'll be seeing you around.
Thank you.
Thanks, John. Appreciate you.